simple advice, free of charge, that you get anytime you come to visit Mansa Musa on NFM Radio during this Fire Will Burn You program. I know some of you say you are having problems on YouTube. Yeah, sometimes the machines get a bit paranoid and they start to behave or misbehave. I think now everything has gone through as normal, so you should be getting a feed all right. Anyway, so the what we are waiting for is to get Mr. Tepe. If he is ready, we are also ready here in London, waiting for him to come and give us as much insight to what is happening as possible. I'm trying to contact him. Don't forget, it's a long way over there. Luckily, I've got Mr. Tekwe, so let me quickly arrange and put him on air. Then we can discuss matters. Hello, good evening, sir. Mr. Tekwe, good evening.
Good evening. I hope you can hear me.
Now I can hear you loud and clear. I hope you can hear me as well.
Yes, I can hear you.
Brilliant, brilliant. Welcome to our show once more. This is about the third or fourth one. Every year we try to get your expertise on so many things happening in Ghana. Tonight, what I was going to ask you was straightforward question as to why almost everything is done and yet the IMF is not playing ball. Maybe there's something that our government or Ghanaians still have to do. But before we go there to discuss that, I want us to discuss your own comments. The one that you posted, I think I saw it on one of these, I think it's on Ghana Web. You said something. Let me see. It said Setekpe warns against 22 billion cedi fiscal offset. For the sake of we those mortal people, say, what is fiscal offset?
Thank you very much. I try to refrain as much as possible from using, language that will divert attention from what, one is saying. But simply put, it is what many people would refer to as financial engineering. I'm sure you may have, heard that expression before. So it is, we're giving the impression that something is done when in actual fact it is not, the case. And so in this instance, every government has a pipeline of projects. There's no way a project can be completed in one particular year. And so let me make that clear, that I'm not saying that other governments have not accumulated arrears, on a project. But then there are ways in which these are handled. So what we are talking about is also similar to the bailout cost, if you remember, whether it should be added or not added. So we are talking about the pipeline of contracts that government awarded. And many of them, especially when it comes to what we call the capital projects, the major projects like roads, like a tribal gas processing plants, the dam, Bui Dam, such big projects definitely takes more than 1 year to complete. And so what it means is that we call them multi-year expenditure. Now, what you do is that you estimate the amount that is due to be paid in the year in which you are presenting the budget, and then the rest is what we call the medium term, included in the medium term budget, which means that those ones will be paid 2, 3, 4 years later. Now, the total contracts awarded in a report which is now mandatory in the Public Financial Management Act that we did was 77 billion. The amount that was paid or supposed to be paid in 2021 was 24 or so billion. So if you deduct that, that's how you got, 23 billion. So if you deduct that, that's how you got the 53 billion that I mentioned. Now, the question is, how do you settle this and how do you treat it? Now, if you look at the budget, if you divide this and say that on average, all the 50 billion left will be finished in, say, 5 years, then the average is about 10 years every year. If you say they will be finished in approximately 3 more years, then you divide your 53, by 3, and that will give you something higher, above 20 billion. But if you look at the budget, it is not properly or adversely, it is not showing that level of expenditure. It's not showing. And that means that if you don't show that level of expenditure and you show like 7.3 billion, which is in the budget, then it means that you are not showing the true deficit, you are not showing the amount that will be borrowed, and you are not showing, therefore, the amount that is likely to add to our national debts. An example was single spine. Remember when we were confronted with single spine, we met labor, we disclosed the total amount, and we said that the arrears that is owed to labor cannot be met in 1 year. We had been borrowing to pay. So we agreed that we shall pay in 3 years. And every year we borrowed, to pay 1/3 of the cost. So that is what is at stake. Now, the amount that was in the budget was lower, but there were some pluses and minuses that were done. That is the offset. A plus will be shown somewhere. Then in another section of a budget, a minus will be shown. So in other words, arithmetic. If you say 1 + 1 = 2, and then you go somewhere else and you say 2 - 1 is no longer 3. It becomes what? 1, which means that you never made any change. That's what we mean by the offset. You offset a plus with a minus, or a minus with a plus.
Can
that, sir, to this.
Can that be said
yes.
in a simpler form of the smart accounting, cynical terminology, smart accounting, or that's different?
Smart accounting, yes. Financial engineering, smart accounting, those type of terms are the ones that are used to describe, yes.
All right, sir. Go ahead, sir.
So it's like your studio knowing very well that you have supplies which you have to pay, and you have adverts which may not be able to meet the whole bill, and yet you state saying that, oh, you are in a very healthy condition, you are in a very good condition, But the reason I'm highlighting this was that the same thing happened in 2016. In the 2017 budget, the Mahama administration was said to have left contracts of about 11 billion, 7 billion of which was pipeline arrears. In that case, the current government said that the Mahama had left liabilities of 8.3 billion, 8.3%. Then, while this was what was being told the public, quietly, about 7% or so was deducted and only 2.3 was carried forward. So the whole world was being told that President Mahama left a deficit of 8.3, when in actual fact, the deficit was, 6.1. In fact, if you add subtract the discrepancies, are 5.8. So back then, the bigger amount was shown and then offset to give the impression that we left a very bad and terrible economic situation. The opposite seems to be happening now, and I say seems because there could be a clarification where the reverse is happening. There is that larger amount, but in an anxiety to show, that we are performing well, a larger amount was deducted and a smaller amount is being attributed as a liability. Now, I am saying that, and then my last point, then we can go on. My point is that when you do that, or when we did that, we were saying the deficit was low. And today we are all where we are when the IMF, Fitch, Standard & Poor's and the rest started revising our figures. And then we realized that we were not doing what you call fiscal consolidation. We were not paying down our debt as much as we were saying. And I'm saying that if we are doing similar things, then it means that we are not going to be showing the true level of, arrears. And once we enter the IMF program, it will be another government that will be saddled with a disclosure. By then it will be too late. So I'm saying let us discuss the issue now and let us show the true amount. Because if we are struggling, and that is the point you were making, if you are struggling to restructure 13 billion, then if you take 5 billion, 50 billion outstanding, and you divide it by 10, you are talking about 5 billion of contracts which must be managed in the next 3 years. And so we had a hunch that something might be bigger. If you remember, and you Google, former President Mahama was saying that when he comes into government, we shall focus on the pipeline. What he meant by the pipeline is the arrears that are in the books, which we normally don't take proper account of. And that was the idea of compiling those contracts in 2016. So it's an issue that will come to haunt us if we don't handle it carefully. The same way that the debts, the bailout costs, and other things have come to haunt us, and today we are where we are.
Mr. Stakwa, let's go into this a bit more. You have just said that the reverse of that smart accounting thing is happening now. Let me play the devil's advocate, since the NPP people are not here to defend themselves. They would say that no, we are not doing it now. Now everything is above board, because after all, it's about 2 years ago that Adongo and the rest, and you yourself were complaining of this smart accounting. But now that the IMF is demanding transparency, you cannot still blame us of anything underhand. What do you say to that?
Well, remember we were under an IMF program, the program which the NPP ended. So we were on an IMF program when we said that under the gift miss, we are going to take the country into a proper method of accounting for its liability. And not take a 1-year view, but take a long view. So the issue that came up in 2016 is not new to the IMF, it's not new to the World Bank. In fact, the World Bank that was supporting us with the gift miss project. And we had put in place something called accrual to move the country to accrual, semi-accrual accounting, which means that you account and accrue your liabilities properly. Let me again relate it to your studio or to any business. You have come to the end of the year and you are calculating the bills that you have to pay. Some go to the extreme and say, I am going to take the cash that I received and the cash that I paid up to the end of the year and let the rest take care of itself the following year. Another one will say, So let's say you account for revenue, which is 10. You account for actual cash, which is 8. And you report a profit of 2. Then another one will say, yes, I have accounted for 10. I have people who owe me. So you add it, that is accrual. Because everything occurred in the year, only the cash was not paid. And then you also say that I have bills that I have to pay. So in that case, if your bills amount to 1, then you are going to add the 1 to your expenditure, right? And once you add the 1 to your expenditure, you are not going to make the same level of profit.
Sure.
But your account is more truthful. Your account is more realistic. And we are saying that given computers and everything, that is what I was talking about, give me. It should be possible for us to let every ministry, department, and agency tell us the true state of the liabilities that the country is owing. We were no longer in the 70s. We are no longer in the 80s. Now, even with your cell phone, you know, many of these things can, because we are not United States, we are not United Kingdom. So all this compilation with very powerful smartphones can even take all of them. So we started compiling them. So we are not talking about anything that is alien. And many countries are making that move. And therefore the IMF, which is the one which takes care of these reforms, the World Bank and others who help to put these systems in place, have become aware that one way in which, you know, developing countries have to improve their accounting is to account for this liability. So it's nothing new. The fund will definitely get to know. And once the thing is in an official report, remember I am quoting from an official report. So once it's in an official report, they have an office in Accra and they can go to the Ministry of Finance website. They're always going to the website. And so by now they know anyway. Right? So if they don't know now, they will get to know later. So all I'm saying is that for our own sake, in order that we are not, you know, we do not have another surprise, just as we had a surprise with arrears, we had surprise with deficit, and then all of a sudden we are told our debt is 100%. I'm saying let us do the proper thing. There are many accountants in controller, Minister of Finance, Registrar General who can help to do this, and it's about time we allow them so that we can move properly.
You're listening to Mansa Musa NFM Radio, and the program is called Fire Will Burn You. My guest tonight is Mr. Setekpe. He was former finance minister during Mahama's administration up to 2016. He's speaking all the way from the eastern border to the Atlantic of the U.S. That's where he is at the moment, speaking to us. Hang on for some time. I want him to flow before you can come in with your questions. You just note your questions down when you come as quickly and as concise as you can. Because let me ask you, when you talk about fiscal discipline, why should a central bank, printing either mechanical paper money or electronic money for a government, why should that be a problem? Why shouldn't we rather, accept it, that, the government needs the money and the bank can provide? What is wrong with that?
And inflation is one of the reasons your inflation is 50%. It's one of the reasons your inflation is 50%.
Well, obviously, when you tell Mansa Musa this, me and my fellow ordinary human beings, why is that? Because people want the money and somebody can provide it. So why? Still, I'm asking from a layman's point of view. I'm being serious here. What does that mean? That inflation is going high because of the printed money. When you print money, do you necessarily have to print it against anything, against any minerals, diamonds, oil, seawater, fish? What is it that if you just print money, then your inflation is going high? Can you explain it to our understanding, sir?
Okay, so you just hinted at some of it. When the central bank prints money, it has an idea because that is their job. So it has an idea of how much cities, families will need, because families will need cities. It has an idea of how much cities that businesses will need to buy raw materials, to pay workers and to do all those things. And then it has an idea of how much of those cities will move from businesses and individuals who are employees in the form of tax to GRA. So when it is printing the money which governments should use, it is printing money for which individuals will use, printing money which businesses, will use, add the two, and then it will say part of that money will go to government. Okay? The government itself also owns businesses and the rest. So it will take account of when it is estimating that government's own money, let's say, is 60, and what private businesses will bring will be 40. The total is what? 100, right? But remember that it has to take account of the fact that it has already printed the 40 that businesses and individuals are going to use, and that will go to government. So in actual fact, what it should print is 60, not 100. Are you following my point?
Yes.
So, I can repeat it. I'm saying that if an individual, all households who are working, I don't want to complicate it, all households who are working will need a certain amount of money, let's say 200. All businesses will also need an amount of money, maybe 300. That makes it 500 that the government will print. The government itself, that's the central bank will print. The government itself will also need money. But part of the money that it will need, right, will come from the families who will be paid by, businesses. Part of it will come as profit, that's taxes, taxes, which the businesses will pay to the government. So part of the money that government needs has already been printed. In fact, if you want to stretch it further, you can say that part of the money that households need has been printed already by the businesses who are going to pay them.
Sure.
So if you net all of this, and in total you have 300 as the money that you need in the economy, if the government is not collecting its taxes well, or if the government is spending beyond its means, and then instead of asking the central bank to print 40, the central bank prints, 80, double, it means that you have 40 more, than is needed. So you have more cities chasing. Output have not increased. The output of businesses have not increased. The output of how do you call it? The money workers have not been pay has not been increased. And yet there's a lot of money in the economy. So all of a sudden you will see that money will be so much in the economy, that people will start to bid more and higher. And when you bid more or higher, for a commodity, that is what is called inflation. And then the people would expect, that, prices are high. There are other factors. I'm giving an example, of why printing money, using this example, can be dangerous. Because all of a sudden you are pumped, 200 CD notes in the economy, and government has used it to pay its bills without government actually collecting the tax. They're just printing money. So government pays its own contractors and others, not from the tax that was collected, but from additional CDs that were printed. So everybody thinks that, government is doing well, we have been paid. But all of a sudden, when GRA brings its money, then government takes that one too, and you have too much money chasing the economy. There are other factors like exchange rate and the rest. But I'm giving this as a prime example why it is not good to have too much money chasing. It's like somebody coming into Ghana and then we are not vigilant, our CID and IS are not vigilant, and then they put a lot of, counterfeit CDs. That's why Bank of Ghana is always withdrawing those counterparts. They come and put some machine there and print a lot of money, in the economy. All of a sudden, mind you, because the money is cheap, they can go into a car and buy 4 or 5 cars. It doesn't matter the car. They can even bid because all they are interested in is they want to put the money in the economy. But it is fake money. So because the printing cost is only, the let's say printer that they bought, they will if somebody is selling a Jaguar, for $120,000, dollars, somebody is selling, they'll pay easily, and they really pay more because their motive is not buying commodities genuinely. Their motive is that they have counterfeit money, which they want to just release into the economy for no work done, apart from buying paper and getting some artists to put counterfeit money in the economy.
So, last one on your the point you've raised. How do we, apart from maybe change of government, at the moment, how do we convince the executive, the government in place now, to abide by or, let's say, to go by the rules, so to speak?
Well, in many ways, one of which is those who have a little knowledge, can ask questions. We are not saying the government has done anything wrong. If the government comes to, explain that the treatment is fair and sound, and I am convinced, I'm willing to concede. It's up to the professors and others to also examine what we are saying, because I myself political, they are professors and things, and let us know what I'm saying, is true or not. So it's a matter for the citizens, but it's also a matter, for the government, to to avoid another surprise. As I said, where we said, remember we said our deficit was 5.3, IMF said it's 7%, then FIT comes in and the rest, and then we end up trusting, outsiders, who are giving us information about our own figures. I think we want to avoid that because it won't be good for our credibility, because already we are struggling. We are struggling for the first time to even enter into an IMF program. Entering an IMF program has never been easy. No. But this is the longest it has taken, for us, to struggle, to enter with issues that are still pending. But we need an IMF program in order that we can do a turnaround.
I see. Okay, so since you have mentioned the IMF, I'm trying to make sense of one of your paragraphs. You said, Mr. Tekpe has argued that the treatment of banking and energy sector bailout cost as memoranda items rather than adding them to the country's deficit and public debt stock create a false impression of fiscal consolidation. You see, I still want, we Ghanaians, not only the, the students of economics and high academia, but ordinary Ghanaians. How can a debt, or when is a debt not a debt in itself, but some additional something? I don't get it. How can a government decide to name, something like a banking and energy sector bailout as not debt, but something else? What is the legal backing for this, or is it done? Is it proper? Should it be done, or what is it?
Well, we know that we can choose the method. The government can decide. After the government is the government. Then when you go to the IMF, they will change the method. And that's exactly what happened. Because there's a standard. There's a global standard. Okay, so let me give you a very simple household experience. You are the father of the house. Of course, there are women who are also head of the family in terms of generating the income. Maybe the father is babysitting for the moment. But then you go to the bank and you say you want to borrow money. And the bank says, what is your salary? And you say, my salary is 1,000, let's say 2,000. And then you say, then the bank says, how much do you think you can use, to pay us? And then you say, oh, I can use 600 to pay.
Uh-huh.
Then the conversation starts. How much school fees do you pay? How much this? How much this? And then the most important question is, do you owe other banks?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Or do you owe other individuals? Now, you may not have thought that this would be a relevant question. So, all of a sudden, when you have said, oh, my total expenditure is 1,400, school fees, feeding, everything, is 1,000, let's say 1,400. And that's why I said I can pay 600, every other month, if you give me the loan, because 2,000 which you earn minus 1,400 gives you room, for 600. But when the bank manager asks you that question, all of a sudden you remember that you owe your uncle, 100, or you owe maybe your fellow worker, maybe another 100, right? Now, you can do one of two things. You can decide that you need the loan of 2,000 so badly that you just say, oh, that is all I owe, even though you know very well.
Yeah.
And then you may rationalize it and say, oh, that one, as for this one, I think I can leave it out. Why? Because I'm sure I can tell my uncle, when the time comes that he should give me time to pay.
Sure.
Right? If unfortunately for you, your uncle is a no-nonsense person because you have been telling the same story, you realize that the time will come and you will get a 400 to go and pay the bank manager. And then the bank manager will ask you, so what happened? And then you say, oh, I got a loan from my uncle, and I didn't reckon with it because when you asked the question, I thought you were asking about loans which I took from other banks, and I haven't taken loans from other banks. You see the point? Right? So you can rationalize and say that as for bailout costs, it's something else. It is not part of our normal expenditure. It came about because of doomsday, right? So since it's not normal expenditure, we don't have to add it in calculating the deficit. We don't have to add it when we are calculating how much is the shortfall.
But in actual fact, we have to, don't we? It's a debt.
Precisely. And that's what I mean, the standards. So the standards say that is part of the accrual that we're talking about. And you see the reason why I'm saying that if we are owing, then we have experience from, we have many experiences in the past. But the most recent ones are single spine and doomsday, the cost, which is a bailout. Now, the government may have been right. The government may have been right in 2017 when it says that we are not going to show the bailout cost. Why? That is because you remember we went to Parliament to pass the ESLA tax to pay the bailout cost. So if the government is saying that, oh, I am setting that bailout cost aside, right? I'm setting it aside because, the bailout cost aside because I have revenue that is going to come dedicated only, to pay for that. Then it will be right in excluding it. But immediately the government started to show the ESLA as revenue. And then the government started also to decided to collateralize the ESLA. We know it. Take a loan up front. Then that money is no longer available. And the government cannot therefore insist on the same treatment by excluding it because the revenue has been added or because you have taken money up front. And you see, because we didn't do that, it has come home, the chickens have come home to roost. Because today, the ESLA collateral loan is part of the debt that we are restructuring.
I see. I see. You are listening to Mansa Musa. I am with Mr. Setekpe. He was the finance minister during Muhammad's administration, the previous government, and he's trying to, have us to make sense of figures and calculations and the politics of, accounting and the economy. Mr. Setekbe, let me ask you. So, what you have already outlined, what you spoke about, which was reported, it can form part of the basis for the delay of these IMF negotiations. But still, let me ask you anyway that if you consider that Ghanaians have been hit with so many taxes, all first and foremost to avoid going to IMF, and that was the e-levy. Now, after that, so many taxes has come to pass. Then we got this debt exchange or rescheduling and everything. People's monies, people's savings, pensions, and other things have been collateralized or have been taken for the meantime by the government. Then when you think of it, the politics of everything, Akufo-Addo will tell you he's got friends in France, in Germany, in Britain, some of them in Australia and in America. His finance minister has been to China 2 or 3 times and back. And yet, we don't see any headway. What do you think is happening? Do you think the issue is?
You see, let me take it also literally. When we say that we have friends in Germany, in France, in the US, Australia, those are the same advanced countries that have given the money, the loan that we want from the IMF and the World Bank. Those are the major contributors for that money. Okay, so there's something called diplomacy, right? Even if somebody is owing you, there's a way you can talk to the person and you won't be sounding like a rich man who is condescending on the poor man, right? Or you can also, maybe given some circumstances, be so abrasive about it. So the fact that they are not being abrasive, they don't want to be abrasive about our condition and make things, be difficult, more difficult for us. There's no mean that they will not be listening to their directors on the board. There are staff in the IMF who are coming to our country, just as Ghanaians in the IMF are also going to other countries and assessing them. So I think it boils down to ourselves, because it gets to a point, where the advanced countries' self-interest comes in. And let me give you an example. During the COVID crisis, you remember, that we were promised, poor countries were promised a lot of vaccines. Our second round delayed. Why? Because of the spike in COVID in India, a spike of COVID in China, and the spike of COVID in the US and other places, same advanced countries. So the vaccine they may be promising you, all of a sudden they may decide to divert it because they say all politics is local. Okay, so yes. So the short answer is that they're giving us a good year, a nice year, listen to us, but then they will have to be convinced. Remember, the problem facing us is debt. The problem facing us is debt. And you are going to take a loan from those institutions to add to that debt. So that's why the fund is saying, show us that you can pay the existing debt, like the bank manager we spoke about, so that you are capable of paying the existing debt, so that I'm not giving you a loan. You are not telling me you can pay 400 when in actual fact you are paying 200 just because you are in a yes. Okay, so I'm saying that, I'm responding to, the why, in spite of, what, the government officials may be saying, we may have a problem. But there are other reasons. When you go to the fund program, for the same reason that they want to make sure that you can pay, they want to make sure that you are living within your means. And living within your means, when we say in a household that I've lost my job. Let's sit down at the table. Let's all discuss. You strike out, some clothing. You strike out certain things, you can do it. You lower maybe your subscription, to games, your subscription to, cinema and all the things that, that are on the periphery. They are not core. They are not like food. They are not like food. They are not like the children's school fees. They are not like, so you begin to, until you get another job, you begin to contract so that you don't fall debt. It's the same thing.
Sure.
So when you go to the fund, you have to show your revenue, you have to show your expenditure and everything. Now, if you want to reduce your debt just like the household, then you must reduce your expenditure and then increase your revenue. Somebody will say, how do you do it? It's for the same reason that Musa, after leaving the studio, will put some coat on and go and do some, part-time security job or go and, with somebody's farm. We all did some of these things before,
sure.
Right? And especially in the diaspora where I live, when I was, even though I was teaching I was working at the IMF, I was, teaching part-time and doing other things.
Sure.
Also, in addition, just like, now, yeah. So it's the same scenario. A government behavior is just mimics, what happens in the household. So one, the delay may be because NFM Radio, the fund is not yet convinced about the revenue and expenditure measures that we say we shall implement. Parliament has just passed them. When things became real tough, I think we were told eventually that these were what you call prior action.
Yes.
Prior action means they are needed prior to the IMF going to the board.
Exactly.
Some of the expenditure measures that were in the budget, like freezing, employment, the very thing Mama administration and others were accused of, they were in the budget. So those prior actions, you have to get all of them in the kitchen. So if you're asking about delays, and you did that only going into the Easter, right? When Parliament, the last day Parliament was going on recess, there's no way in which you would inform the IMF, within a matter of, 1 month to prepare and go to the board. So that may be one example. Another example is the fact that we have done the domestic debt restructuring, but we have not finished the external debt, restructuring, right? Another one may be things that may be coming out of, the skeleton. And I think the indication was clear when the IMF published the countries that will go to the board with their program for March, and Ghana was not on it. So it means that the March ending date is not likely to happen unless it is speeded up, unless some special provision. And the reason why this may be difficult is that as you speak, you can Google. As of tomorrow, the IMF is starting what you call e-spring meeting. It has 2 major meetings with member countries every year. The first one is the spring meetings, and the second one, is the annual meetings, April and October every year. So April is likely to be preoccupied. The board has to prepare, for the meetings. They have to tell. Recently, you may have heard the IMF saying that, unemployment in the U.S. and other places may cause a slowdown. Yes, those are the reports. Those are the reports which they are telling the media, which the world's central bank governors and the world's ministers of finance are going to be attending that meeting and discussing these issues. So for that reason, April will be maybe very difficult. It can be squeezed in if we finish, but these are some of the reasons why there's a delay. And in fact, some of them we should have been a bit cautious. When we did the staff level agreement, we're jubilating as if we had, brought in the IMF program. But in that staff level agreement, we were warned that the IMF will go to the board only when we finish, the loan, the debt restructuring, which is never easy for any government.
Right. So now, when thinking about this latest taxes that have been approved in the Parliament, I'm looking for it. I don't know if I can find it, but one of the NDC, I don't know whether it's Kwame Abuja or Atuforsen himself, somebody have said, come out to say that the repayment of certain obligation, I mean loans or monies that government has to start paying, which has been put on hold, that should bring in about 50 billion or something, and that money should have been used to offset any extra taxes that may be needed. Do you support this idea, or it was just political talk? Because, like you have explained, the government will need any money that they can get, whether payment of debt have been temporarily suspended or not. They still need it. Or you think there's some substance in the people saying that these three taxes, the current recent taxes, shouldn't have been necessary? What do you think?
Well, it depends on the information that we have, including the MPs and the information which, for example, I also have. And let me explain. Remember that it was not all debt servicing that was suspended. Remember that the statement, you can go back to the statement for the benefit of you. The statement said that the debt that is owing to the multilateral agency and some bilateral governments will not be suspended. And a multilateral agency includes the IMF and the World Bank. Okay. And they're the ones who are going to support, your program. In fact, the program, when it is prepared for the IMF board, also goes to the World Bank board and the African Development Bank board. So the government still needs money to service, those loans. Some are principal and interest. So it could be that we do not have a total picture, but I think this should give us a reasonable idea, right? Many people may not know, but those who are a bit informed, thanks to the country's education and the sacrifice of our parents, may know. They may know that, wait, the government still needs money. Now, that is the reason why the government, even though it does not have access to the capital markets and some loans, continues to issue treasury bills and takes all of the money, even when it is oversubscribed. So at the moment, we have become dependent on those treasury bills. But the treasury bills are short-term. They are only 90 days. So if you borrow 90 days, you have to repay in 90 days. If you don't have the money to repay in 90 days, and if the taxes are not coming in, you don't have the money to pay, then it means that you must borrow again to pay for what is due. And that is the reason why, again, we established the sinking fund. This habit of borrowing and not having money because we are using all the money for expenditure. We are saying, like a household, like a business, let us put some of the money aside for everything. Everybody has needs. Everybody has wants. But then you limit yourself to your needs, as they say. And it's the same with individuals. If you borrow from an uncle to take your child to school because he is richer than you and you don't go and pay, he may overlook it the first time, but the second time, you can't come a third time, right?
Yeah,
your child may not go to school. So you tighten the belt a bit. We just spoke about unemployment. The same with business. And right now, the business is tough in Ghana, but businesses too, for them to be on their feet, will still have to put some money aside to pay their bank loans and the rest. Okay? So in an austerity, you have to look at both your revenue and your expenditure. So I'm saying that the government will continue. The government still has to pay workers. The government has to continue paying some loans, right? And if it can make money beyond this, then it may be good. Actually, it may be good for the government to even start putting money aside, like the sinking fund, so that when the time comes, because the time will come for us to be paying, those loans that are suspended. So if you are putting some money aside, then that would be another surprise. So I do not have all the facts. I know about Abuja or whoever said it. They are MPs. Sometimes they have more information, a committee, than even me, a former minister, has. Sometimes we talk to them, we compare notes and things. So he may have a basis for saying it, but I'm saying that, another reason why the government may still be borrowing is what I've given. Or the reason why maybe it realizes that it cannot borrow, so much because it can't go to the capital market is the reason why it is, bringing those taxes, on businesses. But remember, businesses, when you tax them, some of the taxes, apart from the income tax, the levies and the rest, are costs. And it will reduce the profit. And then it will reduce the taxes that they are paying on those profits. So you may be getting the money with one arm and giving it away in another arm.
I see. So don't get the money, one arm, put it in your pocket. Don't give it to an arm anyway, if that can be done.
Mr. Tekwe, in anticipation of the debt.
You see, Mr. Tekwe, I know you are very fond of the technicalities, how you explain the figures and what it means and the rest. Let's do the politics.
I hope my explanation is trying to bring them down. It's going down well with your listeners.
No, I'm sure if anybody has anything, they will call in to ask. But let me ask you the politics of this a little bit. The politics of all what has happened and what is happening. My first question is, for all this, who will want to be a next government? I mean, what sort of magic, what sort of, what do we call it, what level of intelligence does anyone has that think, oh, these people should go for me to come? How can that be possible? Then the second question is, for the cosmetics of it, people are saying Ken Oforiatta should go or should have gone. Do you think that is right? I mean, do you subscribe to that? Or you think that is just almost as personal and that it won't help in any way if he is replaced? What do you make of all this?
Well, that's behind us now. It is clear that His Excellency would want him to stay. So I don't want to, divert attention from that again. It's up to the, MPP and His Excellency the President. And so I do.
No. My point here is that would they have served any purpose? I mean, you have the experience. I mean, the know-how. He not being there for someone to come, would it have been better, or you think there was nothing there?
It will be speculation, with all due respect. So I do not want to. I do not want to get into that at this stage because we have a task to do. But the answer to your first question is that even in times of war, there are people who rise, to the occasion and lead their countries and things into war against rebels and the rest, right? Even in times of colonial, rule, the going was tough, In the olden days, we had our own Mansa Musas and the rest. So at any point in time, no matter the challenge, and remember again, the rough patches that we are having now, people say you have to go back 30, 40 years. And that is the ERP SAP era, right? So you can think about, lecturers, younger than lawyers, God bless his memory, my former boss, Dr. Kwesi Botwe, and others rose to the occasion. You remember Rollins Chain and all those things coming out of the military rule and coming out of drought. The drought then was serious. Coming out of cocoa farms that were bent. If you remember, I'm sure. And I told my own story recently, how I nearly didn't go to school because my parents were cocoa farmers. And that was a period when the cocoa farms were bent. So there was no money, right? But thanks to God, I had teachers and things and was directed to cocoa board and managed, to get a scholarship to go to school. So I'm always saying that a nation is big, a nation is diverse, a nation has its talents, and I am sure that there will be a set of Ghanaians who can rise to the occasion. Yes. And obviously, where I'll pitch my camp on that one.
Let's coming to think of it, going forward. I know you were trained in, is it Harvard or Yale?
Oh, Harvard, yes.
Harvard, okay. Western trained economist. Do you think there is a need for a total, how do I put it? A change of direction in our economic outlook? I have termed it, casino economy or economics, where we borrow and spend, even things that those days, what we call the Gogisberg economy, where we sold raw materials for meager cash. That was the Gogisberg. Now we are not even doing that. Now we don't even sell the raw material. The materials are on the ground. We haven't mined them. We haven't taken, but the money has been collected already. You see, this sort of banking, lending system of economies, do you think we have to change and go to a proper economy built on the strength of the nation? For instance, if we have strong leadership and a lot of strong people around that leadership who will sit down and say, look, from henceforth, or even go back to some how do we call it, some arrangements and some contracts and some agreements that, look, we've signed this oil belongs to Ghana. In law, it's for Ghana, for Ghanaians. And now we've signed it because of your technology that we get about maybe 16, 20, maximum 25%. The rest, you take it away. This is not good anymore. The new contracts, we are taking minimum 50-50, or even we will take the lion's share. If you don't want it, let's leave everything to rot in the land or in the sea. We need to change course to actually sustain our way of life. I mean, to live life like them, instead of following this sort of monetary, fiscal, lending, borrowing, financial market, money market. It's casino to us. Do you think there should be a change of emphasis in the economy or not?
Well, at the risk of sounding very, very passionate about my boss, he started a change. So let me give you very specific examples. Together with Professor Mills, we discovered oil. And we said we shouldn't treat oil the same way we did with cocoa, gold, and bauxite. So what did we do? Let me be very specific. One, we said we have been borrowing, like you said, for consumption. And then we pile up debts and it becomes a problem. Solution, let's put some of the money aside, the oil money aside, to pay down debt, as the Constitution wants us to do. So we set up the sinking fund. We used $550,000 US of our own oil revenue to pay down, a substantial. The first sovereign bond, remember, was $750 million. We refinanced $200 million of it. The remaining $550 was paid from our own oil revenue. The NDC paid $350. The NDC left $200 in the sinking fund. The MPP used the $200 to pay off the last $200 of the Kufuor bond on October 4th, 2017, the 10th anniversary. Remember, that bond was, 2007. Then we said, let us continue putting the money in the sinking fund so that when we issue a bond to do development, we can now begin to pay down and not wait for 3 years to the time before we are scrambling. So we had a rule for that. Many of the countries you are talking about, that is what they do. I can assure you. We learned this lesson from Trinidad and Tobago. We learned this lesson, from, I won't mention Norway, it's an advanced country. We learned this lesson from Philippines.
Okay.
We learned this lesson from your back door, the countries that were joining the EU from the former Eastern European countries.
Yeah.
That's how they are doing, yes. So that's one model of development. you will agree with me that paying down your debt has nothing to do with, it's about fiscal discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And both governments, left and right, do it. Otherwise, you'll be in trouble. Your ideology notwithstanding. 2, we also said that one of the reasons Ghana has been having difficulty all the time is that when cocoa prices go down, when gold prices go down, they often go down because America coughs and suddenly they are not eating enough chocolate. Europe coughs and suddenly they are not eating enough chocolate. Okay. So what did we do? We said, let us put in what you call countermeasures, opposite measures. So that when the price of oil, because we now found oil, and we say that's why we say don't treat it like cocoa, like gold. When the price of oil rises, put some of the money in a stabilization fund.
Sure.
So that when the prices fall, you can have that money and use it to balance the budget instead of increasing taxes anytime, instead of going to the IMF and borrowing. When crisis hits, domestic crisis like drought and the rest, and the cocoa farms are not producing 1 million tons, but 800,000, 600,000 or whatever, okay, not 600, but 800, 750,000 metric tons. At the time the cocoa prices were high, put something aside. Cocoa board was going to be required to create its own buffer. And then put some more money aside. So that during those times you can fall on them. So it's not just world crisis. What is the evidence? When COVID came, do you remember, Musa, that the first money that actually went to support COVID was $250 million in the stabilization fund, which the current government went, to Parliament to take from the fund. That money was put aside by Mama. Now, question: if that money was put aside with one oil field, so if with 3 oil fields, we had tripled it, it would have been 350 because we tripled the output. The output was about 70,000, and it rose to about 190,000, almost triple. So if we were able to put 250 aside, Ghanaians and the Mama's administration, to produce such a result, if we were able to add, another 250 per oil field, that would have been 750, million.
Yes.
That is how you go to the IMF for a COVID loan of 250 because you have your own 750. And you don't go for 1 billion. And that is how you learn, fiscal discipline. You mentioned the word fiscal discipline. Those counter-cyclical measures. Right? Next, we also said that let us look at how we use taxes only to be doing major projects. Why can't the projects pay for themselves? That Kwame Nkrumah did. Because Akosombo Dam was paid substantially from, even though the tariff that Kaiser and others were paying was low.
Yes.
The Mahabo and the rest. So what did we do? Mansa, are you aware that the design of the Terminal 3 was supported totally by the airport tax that will come from Terminal 3 and Terminal 2. And government never gave a guarantee. That was to be the source of payment. And the services that would have come, cargo handling and the rest, would be enough, for the airport company to pay its workers. So yes, I agree with you totally. We should change the way we do things. And it's only then that you do it. And let me give you 2 more. So to support that, we had the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund. We did a bond. We did not consume all the bond. The seed capital for the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund which is the one to be borrowing like the Dubai fund for things like the airport. Right? You know the Dubai fund, and you've gone to, I'm sure you've been to Dubai, you've seen the Emirates and the rest. Which would also be building our own airports and the rest. That 250 million, the source, it came from a bond, the 2014 bond that we did. We didn't put all in the budget because we know that if the infrastructure fund comes and starts supporting those commercial projects, it can borrow on itself and pay back that money, from the lenders, not from taxpayers. Finally, we set up the Exim Bank. How did China develop? China developed because they had China Exim, which was supporting the export of Chinese products to the West with significant financing. So why not the Ghana Exim?
So
I've gone from left to right to center.
All this, all this together, including all these monies that were left, the sinking fund and all the rest of it, now a proper, self-paying capital investment like airport regeneration, I call it Accra International Airport, then the Tema Port expansion, and the biggest of all, the Atuabo Gas Project. How did you...
It's being paid from oil.
Okay.
The Atuabo Gas
is
being paid from the oil. Excuse me.
Okay, sir.
It's being paid from the oil. It's being paid from the oil to have been supplemented by the gas production, because remember the gas was going to supply power.
Yes.
To Cote d'Ivoire and to other. But here we are saying that we have oversupply. If you have oversupply, there's Mali have oversupply, there's the rest have oversupply. Why don't you export it?
My question is that.
And therefore we created an
Sir, my question is that, with all this, how did you guys, the NDC people, how did you manage to have been, how do I say it, to have lost the economic argument, so to speak? Or what Ghanaians will remember, we naming manaka dompe. And those days, 2015, 2016, it resonated as though it was true. But when now you gather all this with actual physical and proper monies kept for future use, and yet you guys left yourself loose, so to speak, to lose the economic or financing or how to control the economy, you lost the argument completely. How or why did that happen?
Well, I was doing monthly media brief. I was going out talking about these things. I was in parliament everywhere debating. I would say it is history, but let's say, our opponents were louder, and the message didn't get through. So I am not here to say that it didn't happen, that we couldn't, use this to win the argument. But there was a group that felt and told Ghanaians that they could do better. And with 3 oil fields, we know the story.
We know the story. The last question, which is very important, in fact, when you came, I spent about 1 hour, actually doing my monologue on how to control, you can't eliminate it, but control corruption, especially petty corruption. I'm talking about giving £10 here, 10 cedis here, 20 cedis there, 100 cedis there, just to get something done. A young man or a woman wants to join the immigration or customs exercise, and have to pay 5,000 cedis there before everything. The word corruption looks as if all the front runners of the flag bearership, both the NDC and NPP, as for other parties, I don't even hear them. But nobody is saying it loudly that, look, no matter how hard it takes or it will be, we are going to tackle corruption, especially what I call petty corruption. Why is it that even your boss, Mahama, I have not heard him speak about tackling corruption? Why is that? Why do you think that's happening?
I think he has. And I think he even mentioned that he was one president who penalized, his own party members. Where he didn't do the penalization, he allowed the law to discuss. So I think it has. But also, you did mention that Africa needs strong leaders. President Obama said Africa needs strong leaders. Excuse me, but Africa also needs institutions. And let me give you an example in my experience. You know, when we did a gift list, you know, we didn't finish. We were on the gift list. I told you that was the reason we were compiling contracts. One of the things we did with gift list is that we abolished contractors filling out forms to claim their money and moving about from ministry to ministry. What did we do? We turned all those forms into a one-page electronic, you know, system, paper, form. And so from the comfort of your office, if your amount is due, you fill the form. You don't have to come to Ministry of Finance to come for somebody to be running around, chasing and looking for a file, you know, and the petty things you're talking about taking place. So right from, you know, the institution, your contract, that's one of the reasons for the contract database. So you know the amount, you know your this thing, so you put in your claim, what we call the warrant, we turn it to an electronic warrant, and it comes to the Ministry of Finance, the desk officer works on it, and then it moves to the controller and to Bank of Ghana, and the money is transferred into your account under the Treasury Single account. Well, did it eliminate corruption? No, but it minimized it. Because all of a sudden, you didn't have, you know, contractors come in, and, you know, many of them also have dignity. There are many of them who don't have a good conscience, you know, making those payments and the rest, right? If you take somebody out for lunch, I think that one happens in London, you know, more meal here and there. Yeah. You know, so I think part of the solution is in automation. For example, we have started discussions, you know, to set up toll plazas. You know, we're told it was already under a certain contract, so we started a discussion, you know, so that Musa, you have the thing on your phone, you put it on your dashboard, and it takes your money from the phone. So you go and top up. That's how you top up. Yeah, that's how you top up. You know what I'm talking about. You live in, and it was actually started in Accra. People bought them, and you saw the auto lane and the rest.
Sure.
You know, to do those things properly, so you don't have somebody, you know, in the booth and collecting. They'll be in the booth, but they'll be supervising whether you paid or not and passing on your number, whether you waited for somebody for a tester to go up, and then you also follow and all that. You know, but they will be paid well because part of the money will not be going to pocket. So these are some examples, you know, where automation can help quite a lot.
But you do agree with me that this culture, you see, the dangerous part of it is that you and I, our generation, in my day, the Kabule days, it was that the taker was a bit wary, a bit confused, sometimes fearful, you know, hiding and that sort of thing. And the giver wasn't happy, he wasn't willing. But now, the taker is bold, the giver is happily willing to part with their monies. I mean, it has become a culture, almost normalized. So my question is, do you agree that no matter how difficult it's going to be, we need to tackle this? Because you and I, where we live now, the corruption may be happening, but it doesn't affect day to day, because that petty corruption of today, me being called by a hospital to say, look, I missed a certain appointment, I had forgotten, so they have rescheduled it or reschedule it without anybody asking me, oh, can you get me £10 or £20? No. So do you agree that we must, as a nation, as a people, tackle this?
One of the things that, yes, and I believe that it's, you know, one, we shouldn't throw our hands up. Yeah, we should work on it in order that it doesn't continue to be a culture. You know, and I'm not overemphasizing automation, but the legislation would also have to work. The law costs and the rest would have to work, and other things, yes. You know, but you would agree with me that when you have to tackle the things, you know, one step at a time. So you mentioned the hospital example. when the University of Ghana Hospital was being set up, one of the things that we were going to do was to automate, the systems, so that even payments you can. After all, in Ghana they use mobile money to pay everything.
Yes.
So why can't you go to the University of Ghana Hospital? You are due for consultation, you pay, and it goes into the account to make things use the very things that is being done, which will make it remote. Which will make some of these things remote. Right. Processes, institutions, procurement, and the rest are the very way to go. Legislation. Yes.
So we do agree on this point. That's very good to know. We've spoken for
Absolutely.
1 hour. Yeah, 1 hour, 15 minutes. I think we've done enough. I will just, those of you, if you want to ask one or two questions, really. So if you want to ask a question, quickly ring in and I'll, just simple ones, one or two anyway. Before any question comes in, Mr. Tekwe, let me ask you this, my personal question. That I think you've gone above finance minister now. If or when you guys win power, what is it? Bank of Ghana board, top man, or what are you going to do? Which one do you want? Because I have big people in the places I can talk on your behalf. That was a joke, That was a joke. So if no finance minister, what do you want? Bank of Ghana or what?
I don't think I've been a civil and public servant, all my life, an international public servant, and so the word is service, and you must be humble enough to support. Remember, we have an executive president supporting in wherever he thinks, you are capable of supporting. So I'm open. Yes, the nation. So it's about the nation.
And look, I'm happy you say.
So let's leave it at that.
I'm happy you say it's about the nation. Look, putting all jokes aside, all play aside, will you consider this a responsibility, a job, a work, instead of now as we see, what is happening in Ghana, it has become something like, it's no more a duty. It's like they are doing us a favor. If you consider Slawusu apparently using public money, build a library and name it after her mom, and a whole lot. I mean, this is becoming like a circus now. So are you going to consider your involvement in the next government as a duty to repair stuff, to do things properly? Or we are going to say, oh, I'm lucky to have a job, let me cash in and go. Which is which?
I had a job, and I left it to come and serve the mother nation. After I had served in government and left with clean conscience, I was a national VAT coordinator at a much younger age. And it was after the VAT was reintroduced that I left, to go to the IMF, where I went for 10 years. And my former bosses, from Mr. Toahoy to Professor Mills and late Pakwesi Msata and the rest, as that I come back, and I came back to serve the Mills administration. So I've always been, as I said, a public servant. I've always been yes, that's a service, that's a work. When I qualified as an accountant, I actually interviewed with one of the big accounting firms that decided to remain in the Ministry of Finance, where I started my journey. So I think I'm reconciled to public service.
Brilliant.
And as I said, in any position, once it is service to the nation, but I would leave that to the person.
Okay.
Yes. And I'm optimistic that President Mahama will be giving the nod. I think my duty now, and I want to be focused, is to tell his story, to tell the things that he did. As much as just you said, we probably should have said it a bit more, but every experience is worth, its importance. And so one of my major responsibilities now is to help tell, not to fantasize, not to say anything beyond what we did, but supported with facts, as I've been saying, and figures. So
Brilliant.
that is what I'm dedicated to doing now.
Right. Seth, well, you are my big brother, so let me call you Seth anyway. So, Seth,
Yes,
let's
yes, I'm
say,
set.
will you be, gracious enough? I mean, kind enough to accept two calls?
Yes, okay, I will.
All right. I think Yusuf, I can see you here. Yusuf, you are the one who called for. Hello, Yusuf. Emudaho, Emudaho, Emudaho. Raise your voice a bit because otherwise you won't hear you. Please, you need to ask the question because I could have taken one or two more. Yes, please. Okay. All right. I think he's got a message. Yeah. Thank you.
NFM Radio.
Yes. Well, if I may answer that one.
Please.
We did a lot of revenue. You remember that the very first thing that Professor Mills did.
And
by the,
Mr. Tekla, one second.
1 second.
Yusuf, I think you have to hang up and listen on the radio or on Facebook, because the phone, I'm cutting a lot of calls. If you can listen to the response on Facebook, please. If you can listen to the response on either Facebook or on the radio, the link, because at the moment you are hogging this phone and people cannot enter. Nobody can come in. So yeah, so hang up and listen on either Facebook or on the link. Thank you. Yes, sir. Mr. Tekwe, let's go ahead.
Yes, there are three elements to what he said. Under the Mills Mama administration, we did a lot of revenue. The very first thing that Professor Mills did when he came in, and I moved those motions in Parliament, was the creation of the Ghana Revenue Authority, so that we can have an institution, one firm institution in control of all the revenues, and not have so many commissioners, under various, and all the revenue coming under different commissioners and the rest. So the GRA was established in 2009, the very year that Professor Mills, as a tax expert, became president. Then, if you remember, we followed up with the merger of the Internal Revenue Service and the VAT Service, where I held my last appointment as Deputy Commissioner before leaving for the fund. We merged it under the GRA as the Domestic Tax Division, so that, and the reason is simple. There's no reason to have two institutions, all of them, the purchase invoice and the sales invoice that the VAT Service is administering and income tax are administering are the same. So they should be trained in both income tax and VAT, just as was done by HRMC, Her Majesty's, now His Majesty's revenue, revenue.
Is it commission?
HRMC, okay, the C.
Commission or something?
Commission, yes. Yeah. In the UK. So those were the trends that we were following, together with the Uganda Revenue Authority, whose first Commissioner General was actually a Ghanaian, my former boss from the then National Revenue Secretary, Mr. Labisia. So that was the first thing. Second, so the measures took place. And then, if you remember, and then we had customs steps put under the GRA and changed to the customs division. And all the administrative matters were put under a single commissioner, under the GRA. Now, next, under the Mills administration, we took every single law that we had. Some of them, the customs law was 1990-something, the GRA, the Income Tax Act was 2000, the VAT Act was 1998. All of them, between 2013 to 2015, we took all of them to Parliament and modernized them together with regulation. We also did, if you remember, on the expenditure side, the Public Financial Management Act. For oil, we passed the Petroleum Revenue Management Act. And they did not only deal with the process, but they dealt with institutions. We actually passed new Bank of Ghana laws and the rest. So a lot was done, on that aspect. On the Chinese model, which he mentioned and whatever, I already mentioned. In fact, yes, China had the theme, the SME model and whatever model they talk, outward looking and the rest. But behind those initiatives were two strong institutions. China Development Bank, they started domestic before they started lending money, to developing countries. The second one is China exit. I mentioned it. What they did and why we could also. And the CDB, actually, the China Development Bank, we were ahead of China Development Bank. National Investment Bank, Blessed Nkrumah, was our CDB. So you see how far looking Nkrumah was at the time. To provide infrastructure, it's the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund that we did, right? And then we did the Exim Bank. So we were following many of those models. And I already told you about the sinking fund and the rest, which other former Soviet Union and the rest. So yes, I may have to have a conversation with the gentleman. He has insights into some of the things. But we need to exchange ideas, so that, we can do more, based on his experience. When I was a deputy in particular, there were instances which I was in London for some of these workshops and the rest. We did participate in some of them, but I hear what he's saying is getting closer to the Ghanaian diaspora, the think tanks, and then, learning some more from them. No question, because they're in the advanced country and we can share some of the things that we were doing, which was following, the advanced country model. Let me give you one quick example. You remember we were resurfacing, we started putting money aside to resurface roads in the cocoa growing areas, even if they are gravel roads and the rest after the rainy season.
Sure.
What is the equivalent in the advanced country? What's the equivalent in the advanced country? It's snow. And you know very well, the plowing of snow, the resurfacing of streets and the rest in the advanced countries. So why don't we bring that home, so that we don't wait 5 years? Then we are rebuilding a road that was built completely. Put some money aside, to do resurfacing after you have constructed it so that the base remains, for 10 years or so before you think about. So yeah, we have applied many of the models, from, outside, and it's the intention of His Excellency, President Mahama, to continue with it.
Brilliant. With your permission, if granted, then I will make Yusuf get your contact and you can discuss, as you say. Listen, the two of you will take the question, all the two at once. One from UK here and the one from USA, Ken. So I will come straight to the fellow here in UK. Hello. 029 or 0029. Hello. Yeah, 0029. Hello. Well, your number is I think you are calling from France, or is it?
No, can you hear my voice, please?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Then let us go. Thank you very much for your time and your service to Ghana.
Sorry. Tell me what's your name is and where you calling from.
Oh, okay. Mr. Mansa, thank you for your service. My name is Kofi Akredi. I'm calling from Dallas, Texas.
I see. United States, and your number really it doesn't look US number.
I'm using a phone card, no problem.
Oh, I see. Okay. Mr. Crazy, go ahead. As quickly as possible, yeah.
Okay, thank you for your time and your service to our motherland Ghana. My question is, according to reliable sources, do you think our 17 or 18 times of going to IMF? Now, I do not know why. I don't know whether it's a problem of black people. Nkrumah collapsed Ghana economy. Robert Mugabe collapsed Zimbabwe economy. And look at our present economic predicament.
Mr. Crazy, hang on. I won't let you go further with that. Are you comparing Nkrumah's economy against what? Against hang on. Are you comparing it to Gogisberg when people were agitating that prices were too high, people didn't have jobs, we didn't have industries? What the heck do you say Nkrumah collapsed Ghana's economy? No. I won't let you go with that. No. Listen, I won't let you go with that. That's mischief. That is mischief. You see, this is not economics. This is politics. And it's mischief. Nkrumah didn't collapse Ghana's economy. That I won't accept it. No. I've told everyone who listened to me that I don't want this mischief. Nkrumah didn't collapse Ghana's economy. No. You listen to me. This one, look, you are calling to explain. You want to explain something. I have to give you the decency. But this you have started, I won't let you go with it. Nkrumah did not collapse Ghana's economy. Nkrumah admitted what? That he has collapsed Ghana's economy. No, Mr. Crazy, no. You don't have this thing. What do we call it? You don't have the right to come and dishonor. Yeah, Ken, go ahead. Ken, go ahead.
I think you can answer. We can answer his question. We can counter whatever he has. Let
Ken ask his, then you can answer both, and we can close
Yes,
them.
please.
Go ahead, Ken, from US.
Yes, okay. Mr. Tekbe, I'm also in the U.S., living in the Big Apple. My name is Ken B. That's the name most people call me. Mr. Tekbe, I would like to say thank you very much for the good job you are doing. You explained something, and I think that really hit the nail right on the head. That you said a lot of stories were spread around that the NDC were not good managers of the economy. And as a result, Ghanaians bought into that. And at the same time, you guys were not able to explain yourself well. And I think this sort of wrong stories being given leg to run on by the other party in Ghana is really becoming one thing too much. At the moment, I've been hearing, people from the other side, which is the NPP people, let me be precise, saying that Temahabo, right, has been sold to, a rich man in France, and all the stories that they put to it, instead of the credit being given to the NDC for having expanded Temahabo and the others that NDC has done. Right now they're saying that NDC sold Temahabo to a French millionaire. Now I want you to please use the opportunity to elaborate on this, to give clarity as to the finance model that was used to do this expansion. Because I know we did something similar to Terminal 3. So if you could use this opportunity to educate us, since people are just going around, spreading this falsehood everywhere. So please, I would like to stand down and listen to your explanation on this.
Thank you very much. It's a French company that did the Temahabo expansion, but the model, as you said, is the same. Is the same as the one we use for airport tax. Otherwise we would be said to have also sold to the contractors from Turkey who did the KIE expansion, the Ghana International Airport, as Mansa Musa would say, Kotoka International Airport. And the model is that these two institutions earn foreign exchange. So in the case of in the case of KIE, it is the airport tax. In the case of the Mahabo, it is demurrage and other things, and also shipping companies that pay, dollars and the rest. Under our smart borrowing principle, which you may have heard of, it is what we were calling self-financing. Self-financing. And in fact, it was the same model, and I was waiting to respond to the gentleman who was attacking Nkrumah. It's the same model that Kwame Nkrumah used to finance, the original Tema Harbour, Takoradi Harbour, and the Kotoka International Airport, to mention a few, the dam. So what we're doing is just to, modernize it in terms of establishing escrow. So instead of giving sovereign guarantee, we created an escrow at Bank of Ghana where the cost of financing will be transferred periodically into that account, and the payment, used to pay the loan, irrespective of source. And in fact, 60% of the cost of KJTR, which just got banked, was going to be on the same principle, and 40% of the balance from the income was going to be used to support satellite markets in Kumasi. And then it's as an experiment, and the model will then spread. So both for domestic and for foreign finance projects, we were moving, and that's because Ghana had become a middle income country, and you have to get new models, which advanced countries use to do their capital projects. So for these projects, we did not issue a sovereign guarantee. In fact, the Tema Harbour expansion was to have been extended to include, the motorway, which are stalled, at the interchange, which they tried to claim, which, credit was not given. And then the Tema Harbour extension, to the Waterley is the railway, which was also supposed to be self-financing. The railway to Akosomo that would have barged goods, to, the northern parts, of the country. So these are the models, that were used. They are there. And so I think the mischief aside, the truth is there for everybody. And I think I agree with you that we should be telling our story. In fact, we did not say that we did not have, I did not say that we did not have, a means of contesting them. What I said was that we were actually, educating. And I was having media briefs. His Excellency was always, explaining this, but that they just had a louder, way of telling Ghanaians, that they could do better. But we're doing education all right. We are where we are, and I don't think that the lies would help. We'll have to do more to counter it. So thank you very much for your question. But to the gentleman on Nkrumah, Nkrumah had a lot of foresight. As I said, if you look at what he did with the Akosomo Dam, what he did with the Tema Harbour and the infrastructure, it was only in the Rawlings and the Atamil's administration that this infrastructure were repaired, and then, even expanded upon. And so we have every reason to be proud, of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. The model for development around the early 60s and even into the 70s was state-led, and many advanced countries were following that model, so I don't think it was anything for us to be shameful as followers of Nkrumah. Nkrumah is and others for that matter. I hope the gentleman is listening.
Thank you very much. You see, people, I don't have time for, because this mischief, when we are talking about Akufo-Addo destroying this summit, destroying the whole economy, making a mess of everything. These people will not come and talk to
Mansa, let's be patient and then, demolish the argument. The mischief against Nkrumah is the same thing that the last questioner, said, collecting money from a French billionaire and all that, it's Bolloré, and everybody knows, that is a French, big company. Every business and company is owned by somebody. Right.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry for, harshly letting the fellow go, because I don't have time for such people. Akufo-Addo is destroying the economy. Instead of them to come and talk straight and harsh and hard to existing government, you come and denigrate Nkrumah's name, Nkrumah Kola. And which economy were we comparing Nkrumah's economy with? The white man's, the one they didn't have jobs, they did the military, or what do we call it? The police didn't have boots to wear, they didn't have anything, no industries, nothing. And you can get that, even the energy to come and talk about Nkrumah like this. I won't accept it, not on my show. Mr. Tekpe, in fact, thank you big time. Every year or so, anytime I call you, you find time to come and discuss with us. Some people want to come in, but it's a bit too late. Me, myself, I need a rest too. So we've done 45.
My pleasure.
45 minutes more than. So your good friend, what's his name? His Excellency Victor Smith is extending his greetings. And he says he will find time to mark your what do we call it, your performance. So he's going to watch the this thing again on Facebook. Anyway, so thank you very much. And all right, yeah, he's listening. And let's do it again another time. Anytime you come to London, we hope to see you.
Definitely. And goodbye to all your listeners.
Thank you very much. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye.
Right, so that was me with Mr. Setekpe, who happens to be the former finance minister during Mahama's time, the Mahama's administration. You see, like he said, he and people like Emisata, they spend their time doing the real backroom stuff, the real heavy lifting, figures and how they should work. And so they don't do the politics very well. Now, though, I'm sure they've learned their lessons, and they will, because I spoke and I said the other time that, look, massive infrastructure or investment expenditure, massive one like that of the what do we call it, Tema Harbour expansion, the Accra International Airport expansion, then the Atwabu gas. These are things that a government will borrow big money, use it, and at least people will say, oh, this is the result. But as we speak, we have a Kufuor have borrowed that to the zilch. Kufuor come and stand here and say absolute rubbish that we haven't overborrowed. Then you have someone to ring me all the way from America with some dodgy number. Not this number does never look like American number, but it says from America. Come and tell me that Nkrumah collapsed Ghana's economy.
NFM Radio.
So, hopefully tomorrow, this person will also have time for rest. This woman in Accra. She is a PRO for the Road Safety Organization or Association of Ghana. Maybe we'll do that road safety tomorrow. It is that important. So on that
NFM
note,
Radio.
Mati. On that note, we will part companies. Thank you all for listening. Those of you, one or two people who wanted to come and ask questions and couldn't grant the, get you through. I'm sorry. Let's do it again all over again tomorrow.
Listen to Fire Will Burn You on NFM Radio.
Thank you very much for tonight. And hopefully tomorrow we'll do it. Hopefully tomorrow we will get our two lady presenters, Vivi Nash and Empress Kukwa, here in the studio. NFM or say Emudaho bebre. Bye bye.
Run